I think we're good.
Driveline R&D podcast, episode 41. This is Alex Caravan, kind of still your co-swag manager of baseball analytics. A little bit of Department of New York. We'll touch on that later. Co-host, drinking some weird stuff, dude. I'm drinking a sparkling coconut water flavor cherry bang, and I'm drinking whatever this is, dude.
It's whiskey,
some brandy, and I'm gonna drink it in an old yogurt container. But go ahead, Lindley.
Old yogurt.
Thanks, Kyle Lindley, sports engineer, Driveline Baseball, drinking a Jack on the rocks. Cheers.
Cheers, dude.
Anthony Brady, Driveline Baseball, sports scientist, biomechanist, drinking the Elysian Bifrost. Also, again, to be clear, even though I had some audio issues on the last episode, still the primary host of the R&D Research and Drinks podcast. Episode 41 today. Also, have either of you had this?
I think we had a lot. Dude, I think that was on one of our first podcasts.
Yeah, I want to say so
like
too.
Last year.
It's definitely one of my favorites. I've realized now that two of my favorite beers are winter seasonal beers. The Bifrost and the Moorish. So I think I might just be like a winter beer guy.
Dude, over here I have a mini crisis on my drink. Is it just me or is this way more than a shot?
Oh yeah, might.
Dude, I just got too pumped and I'm like used to not pouring.
Sip very slow.
Hard, eh?
What's the percentage on a rah rat? A rah rat.
I mean the usual 40.
Nice.
It's brandy. Dude, do you guys even know what the difference between brandy and whiskey is?
I don't.
Brandy is like distilled
I feel like that's
wine.
a setup for a really dirty joke.
Isn't brandy like distilled? Like it's one step, or it's like this the same thing as whiskey, but whiskey starts with like a beer base.
Dude, I'm nervous about how much booze this is. I can't pour this shit back in.
Yeah, we'll make sure to get your topics out of the way quickly.
But let's kick it off. It's been a while since it's been the three of us, and behind the scenes, I mean, we were on a pretty good guest run. A lot of people were clamoring. We actually just had to say smell you to our boss and Driveline Baseball founder Brady. He was dying to come on this episode, but I said, "Listen, bro, I think I need you to work on the topics a little bit. We'll have you on next week.
True.
And get us a sponsor too.
Yeah, Bang Energy. You see my tweet, Brady?
Or Rubens. Rubens would be way better. No, you tweeted at Bang looking for a sponsorship?
Yeah. I said Bang. I said Bang. You sponsor a lot of hot chicks. How about a couple of hot dudes?
True.
But I haven't heard back. But I'm assuming there's a message request in my DMs. I just need to accept them.
Yeah. Maybe check your spam.
Dude, we got a lot of stuff to cover, and I have a couple of topics I'm like pretty excited to get into the nitty gritty on because it's been a while. I mean, guest episodes are awesome, and I enjoy them a lot. But it's hard to really get into two R&D of topics. I don't know what you guys think of this, but I think it's hard to get like too deep because you don't know what their background is on everything, and you don't want to kind of like put them on the spot. Whereas like we're way more down to put each other on the spot because like sometimes we just like talk it out. Right. Like we know what we're working on way more closely usually, and also it's like you don't want to put them on the spot about like giving too many insider secrets.
Yeah.
And
you don't know what they
your
can
boys.
Talk about.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not Black Ops, your boy's down to spill beans.
Yeah.
We're an open book, baby.
Yeah. I actually think that when we bring on like the first couple guests for their second time around, I think that will kind of shift a bit, give other people opportunities to like ask us questions, kind of like what we did with Ochar, I think that will give us more opportunity to kind of just like go off on tangents on things beyond just like, oh, okay, Ochar, how did you get to where you are right now kind of a thing, just like the basics.
Yeah. Hey, Och, so we all know, but do you want to kind of tell the viewers how you got into Driveline Baseball? And why don't you tell your story about how you met Kyle Bodie?
Yeah.
Hey, all right, Max, I heard you met Bodie in a crazy way. Why don't you go ahead and tell that?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's all our viewers are tuning in for. They just hear that, like, wait, they're not going to that shit?
Yeah. Damn it.
We make this whole episode. We just switch around. We just both tell our own stories of how we met Bodie.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about? Do you guys want to kind of talk about the department reorg? Because I barely even want to talk about it, dude. I got so used to doing the co-swag manager of baseball analytics intro.
Damn, yeah.
Yeah, Caravan's now the head of data science. Mm-hmm. Anthony's in charge of sports science. We got Dan O'Quinn in charge of baseball ops, and then software is now kind of its own. Not its own, it's separate from R&D, so it's like different from the research and report development and tool development that we're doing. So
yeah, we kind of like all of the wings or the restructuring is like been happening without actually like calling it what it is, kind of a thing, and now it's just like formalizing a lot of that in terms of like how the research and development department of Driveline Baseball operates, and now it's just a bit more structured and clear as opposed to like just one flat structure in R&D. Everyone just like can literally do anything, kind of a thing. So
not that it's super interesting to the listeners or viewers, but like it's been a lot easier, like getting things more discretized and like tasks getting done and just like organizing better. When we don't have to plan with like a whole department, like we can get it more into like each of our own like little pods and each like have less projects that we have our hands on. At least that's been my experience so far.
Yep. Well, definitely that was part of the reason I was like pretty glad for the split, just because that's what was going on with me and Dan. We're both just checking on like 8 different people's projects. Lindley's been a couple analytics wing meetings. I assume the structure might be a little bit more different than what was then our wing, now sports science wings. Yeah, dude. I mean, I'm excited about it too, just to give like some people more identity as well in terms of their position, because I think like too often like people come in and there's like 2 or 3, occasionally even 4 managers that are kind of like all dabbling if we're sharing a hitting analyst and like
or 0.
Yeah, or 0. But shout out Mel Bell. But like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna be an issue anymore going forward. I think everyone has like a specific, not even just a specific role, but a specific point of contact. And at least like one big project, sometimes like a couple mini projects. But probably not super interesting to the listeners. So I don't know how much more we need to go on it. But I guess I'm down for a quick round of updates, and then we can get into the reliability stuff. Do you want to bring up anything, Brady? Just general like last month and a half.
Yeah. No real updates as far as project goes. A lot of Black Ops stuff for me, almost entirely. I will say the one update is I think this is the first episode where I have the longest facial hair. So I don't think that's ever happened before. So I think that's my major update in terms of what I've been working on for the last month. Really been focusing on my mustache, staying the course, and it's brought me to this point. I'm pretty happy with it, honestly.
Okay, dude. That I felt that low. That was a little bit passive, dude. Staying the course. I only shaved mine because I was getting the headshots. Yeah. And somebody told me I had a bad stash, so I went and shaved it. No, I got headshots before Thanksgiving, so I had to.
For what, bro? You modeling now?
Oh yeah, got to get my kick my modeling career off. I'll actually
model, dude. Sports engineer model.
in the description to this video, even if I don't have them yet, I'll edit the my headshot back into the description so you guys can all see it. But yeah, it's gonna be great. I got one with my stash, one without. So
are you gonna make it your new Slack photo?
Probably not. Probably not Slack.
Damn.
Maybe a Photoshop version on Basecamp.
It's fair.
I was gonna say, one project update that we're gonna talk about. I'm super pumped to be moving out of. Like I said, I think I'll still be doing plenty of development in the short and midterm future, but I have a little bit more bandwidth now, and potentially, hopefully, a little bit less project management bandwidth used up with the department split. So I'm pumped to get in on some data science projects and overall predictive models that I'll talk about in one of the sections. I was going to say regarding to me shaving, which if the viewers are watching, looking smooth. And by the way, don't sleep on my chin scar still there, baby. After I almost split my face open dirt biking. Yeah, I think it's a perma scar.
Is your knee healed?
No, I mean it's healed, but it still looks like it's.
Oh no, dude, I shouldn't have asked. I'm sorry, guys.
It's dangerous. This is always a really dangerous camera angle.
Yeah. And that wasn't my knee, dude. No, but what was I gonna talk about? Never mind, dude. Let's go to the first topic. I'm already hammered off this brain, dude.
First topic. Okay, yeah. Today we got 3 main topics talking about jump testing reliability. Caravan's gonna hit on some VAA, vertical approach angle, right, and spin efficiency model changes, and then Lindley's got a machine learning and injury prediction article for review. So first section.
So jump testing has been in the last, year or so. We've started using it as a assessment protocol for the high performance department. We've talked a lot about some of the things we've used that data for. For example, like a fastball velocity predictor based off force plate metrics. But one of the things, because it's our in-gym assessment protocol, we're hoping to bring some sort of assessment that's similar to our online clients and remote clients. So one of the kind of beta modules.
Who you calling beta, dude?
One of the like modules in development or features of Modus that's not currently public is a jump module. So it measures velocity and estimated like force output. So we did a jump testing, like kind of reliability analysis with that, which is my first time. I'll let the hair down. Caravan walked me through some of that because it's like more on the analytics side than I've really ever been on. So I got my feet wet with some Cronbach's Alpha and some ICC measures, which is really interesting. So we're looking at trying to find how many jumps it would take with this sensor-based product or sensor-based measurement to get a good, reliable measure of somebody's actual performance and like basically the minimum amount of change in their jump performance that they would have to change for us to detect that reliably with the sensor measurement, which is really cool. And it was very low. I think we were only looking at peak velocity.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah,
we were 5 trials, right?
Yeah, we were only using 5 jumps, which is pretty low. I think with the force plates, which is a higher fidelity measurement, we're doing 3 jumps per like test. So 5 jumps with the sensor, and we were able to detect, I think it was like 0.1 meters per second change or lower, which is pretty cool. And then
what's like what is like a meters per second jump velocity? Just to get an idea as far as like that magnitude.
2 point something. I think it was in the 2s. So
as far as like percentage goes, what was the like percent error of the magnitude?
Oh, that's less than 5%. That's less 5 because the magnitude was between 2 and 3 for most guys.
Gotcha.
2 and 3 meters per second. So like 0.1 meters per second is pretty small.
Yeah,
relatively. And then Caravan did a similar analysis with the force plate measurements. And then how also like phase gains and whatnot. I don't know if you want to get into that now.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Sorry. Also, by the way, I took down my hair to see just how this might be my max. This might be my max long hair length ratio to beard hair because I think I'm gonna shave. I think I'm gonna shave in 2020. That's what I promised my girlfriend. So I don't know if you're gonna see me this ratio of hair to this clean shaven anytime soon. So take screenshots.
So for those listening, make sure to hop on YouTube and get a sneak peek real quick.
Wait, you said you're shaving your head?
What's up?
You say you're shaving your head?
Yeah.
Wow.
I just gotta figure out if I could fire a way to donate it, and then B, figure out if I want to do something crazy with my hair right before, or if that kind of botches the donation part, because you can't like bleach it and be like, here, take my like shitty silver dyed hair.
True.
You're like, nah, dog,
True.
This hair is ruined. But anyways, yeah, to kind of restate what Lindley was talking about, essentially super important reliability analysis when we use a new module or type of technology to track something. Essentially, we want to know how many trials the athlete needs to take before we have a reliable read on what his true mean is. So like a way to think about it is, if something's super variant, you don't want to just do it one time. If someone's going to like be pogo jumping like 22, 32, 37, 27, you know what I mean? You kind of want to see that based on just how variant it is, the lower number of trials is going to be the floor used for that reliability analysis. And actually for force plate jumps, dude, it converged even quicker because I ended up using 3 jumps. I ended up using 3 force plate jumps because not everyone does 4 in our in gym assessment. Most people either do 3 or 4, but just to keep it standard, I just cut it down to 3. And that a really high, that like a 0.9 something Cronbach's alpha, which usually 0.7 is kind of the cutoff in terms of just the industry standard of something being reliable. And then a really high ICC as well, intra-class correlation, which is like the reliability, the reliability of those numbers when you have multiple repeated measures. So the same subject and there are multiple times and then multiple subjects. So really good news for our assessment, because that means we can quickly get an idea of someone's true mean or true value in that test right away. And I did that for force plates, like Lindley said. And part of the reason we really want to look at force plates and what we've been breaking down, shout out Anthony Osnax, who's been manning our in-gym high performance dashboard on the force plate side, which has a bunch of cool stuff. It has like expected gains based on someone coming in. It has KPIs. One of the things what we're working on with him this week is KPIs when someone goes from one phase to another. Because when we have athletes come in, we log them into certain phases. We do like accumulation, strength, power, maintenance, on-ramp. We have a couple in there. And that usually is a prerogative of Dan Adams, our head of strength, and the strength guys. So they assess an athlete. We're going to throw this guy on the strength phase, whatever, depending on where he is in his season. And we essentially want to get a really strong idea of KPIs when someone comes from a phase into another phase. So we were playing around with different ways to portray. We're initially doing kind of like months, like what's the average gain of someone coming off a strength phase in the month of December, but we decided that was a little too uneven based on our like 6-week retest. So we actually just had a meeting today to reconfigure it. We're looking at two methods. We're doing rolling averages. And by the way, I'm curious what you guys think. If you guys have any ideas, obviously I'm kind of laying this out right now, but we're doing rolling averages on the phase gain. So say 40 people have come off a strength phase so far in our data collection. What's the average counter movement jump height gained by the last 10 guys? And 10 is a number that I want to put like a little bit of statistical backing on. I'm going to do some analysis to kind of get an idea of what the right sample size is, like what like how good of like a random sample of 10 people, how accurately does that represent the overall population of all the data points there? But for now, we haven't actually found that number yet. So let's just say 10. 10 is probably a good number. But yeah, rolling average of the last 10, phase gains for each respective phase. So it'll look like a typical rolling average over data points. And then we're also looking into doing like kind of a matrix, almost a Markov chain, if someone's familiar with Markov chains, but essentially having like a big matrix for each assessment or retest. And each, like the columns will be all the phases as will the rows. So it'll be something like if you come off accumulation into strength, what's your expected, or what's the average gain or loss? If you come off strength and accumulation, what's the average gain or loss? If you come on ramp, blah, blah. So it's going to be kind of, say there's n phases, it's going to be an n by n matrix.
Right.
And that second one is going to take a little bit of time to stabilize because there's going to be some combinations. Well, it'll take some more time to stabilize based on what the actual combinations are, because there'll probably be some combos that'll be pretty rare. Like rarely will someone go off of strength into power or whatever. I'm kind of speaking here as someone who's not actually sending the faces.
How big is that in?
How big is that in? I think it's around 6.
Oh, 6x6.
6 or 7. We could probably pull it up now.
Okay.
But yeah, essentially that's kind of where we're at on the. Let's see if I got it. So it's power, strength, youth. Youth is just like, we just throw in this youth guys in there just to have them be in a separate population. In season / maintenance, on ramp, and accumulation. So if you include youth, it's 6. If not, it's 5.
Okay, yeah. I doubt there will be many like big leaguers that go from power into youth, but maybe, or in season into youth.
Dude, if anyone's going back into youth, bro, that's a problem.
Yeah. What if you find out that's where the real gains are, though? What if that's where the real gains are the whole time?
That's just gonna be data misentry, dude.
Yeah.
that's gonna be the stupidest. That's gonna be the stupidest like report to give someone. That's like the classic like analyst is just out of touch. There's like clearly a data misentry. You're like telling Dan Adams like, yeah, man. Yeah. So looks like if you just go from strength to youth, we got one data point there, but they gained 7 inches.
Yeah.
So I think we just gotta program everyone to youth. Yeah. And I think that's how you make a lot of gains to like get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. All of a sudden, Bauer just goes from in-season to youth just all the time. That's his secret. That's how he got Cy Young. He just goes from in-season to youth.
There might be a little of that in the article later. What we talking about?
True.
I was gonna say, Brady, is this set up for a screen share? Can I do a sneak peek of some live gains, or is it gonna?
Yeah. Just tell me when you're switching. I can switch it.
All right, I'm about to switch right now.
Okay.
So this is what's up?
Do you know how standard the programs are? So like, can we be confident that if in the last if 10 or whatever the number is in the last 10 athletes or last 10 changes, can we be confident that those guys had similar programs, or they are like
better
close
question
enough?
For Dan Adams.
Yeah, that's why. Okay.
But in theory, I would hope there's a fair bit of standardization. But so this is a couple data points I was playing around with, and this is a graph I slapped together. I wasn't planning on presenting this, but I figured it shows some perspective on a couple of things we're taking into consideration.
Are you trying to be on the ICC page?
Oh no. Is that what's sharing?
Yeah.
Still?
Oh, you're good now.
Okay. So this is these are some gains that we have post COVID, and so starting from like July on, I recoded everything as an assessment to kind of standardize the playing level, and these green bands are actually relevant to what we started this convo talking about, the smallest worthwhile change. I did usually the kind of industry standard is using 0.2 as a smallest possible level to kind of dictate the effect of the noise. So you do 0.2 times the within subject standard deviation, usually which came out around 0.3 inches. So I threw green bands here at 0.3 and negative 0.3. So essentially the idea being like most things in here, might be considered noise. If someone, gains 0.1, that might just be noise. Yeah. But one of the things here, and this I use this example as one of the things that we're cleaning up now, because we still got to go back and backlog a bunch of phases. I had like a higher like sample size cutoff because we had like 6 or 7 phases and they were kind of all over the place. They were like really jittery because we had a bunch of people that only had like 1 or 2 data points in a few instances in that month and phase combo. But essentially, yeah, we're right now we're trying to redistribute the purple line out to all the other phases, see what the right sample size is for the rolling average selection, and then convert this to rolling average and also that kind of matrix gain. So total live project. I started working on this last week. I mean, I've gone back and forth on some Basecamp posts the last like couple weeks, but I only started really getting my hands dirty on this last week. Yeah. So looking forward to that.
That's fire. Beast.
Onto the model revamps. Is this with Data Robot?
Yeah. Shout out Data Robot. If I clip this and show to them, we'll get really pumped. We might be getting some Data Robot shirts soon. Also,
First sponsor of the podcast.
That's a good point, dude. The thing is, I'm gonna be a conflict of interest at that point. We might just be sellouts.
Oh yeah, shit. That's a good point.
Yo, stick with Bang, dude.
Yeah,
we gotta stick with Bang. Cherry Bang. So two of the, I kind of think these are both pretty easy to talk about in a general landscape, because I think most people that are into baseball analytics have an idea of spin efficiency and vertical approach angle, and maybe at least have some ideas about how to apply them and what their use is. But these are two models. We have internal models for vertical approach angle and spin efficiency, but we thought it'd be beneficial. We've gotten to the point where we've collected that much more data. We have that much more infrastructure in place to optimize that data and build better models, or even try different things with those models. So the last week or 2 weeks, I've basically started revamping with the help of Jack Bredesen, our pitching analyst, Dan, my ex-co-manager, but still co-manager in heart. I've started remodeling the spin efficiency and vertical approach angle models. And spin efficiency, I posted about this a couple of weeks ago on Twitter. Just kind of
is it based on TrackMan data?
So since TrackMan data doesn't directly measure spin efficiency, this actually this is a good question that I was going to address anyways. But there's a couple ways to train it. So we have a ton of Rapsodo data. I think most people know we work pretty closely with Rapsodo. So we have a bunch of Rapsodo data. So one way to train it is, you get the Rapsodo data, you figure out movement conversions, general calculation conversions between Rapsodo and TrackMan. You build a big predictive model on the large just Rapsodo data, because that'll have all of the Rapsodo data will have a spin efficiency measure, right? So you have a clear response variable, and then you have all the feature variables, all the other metrics. You calculate a model on that, fit the model to that, try to fit the model to TrackMan with the movement conversions, and then try to validate it a little bit. That one's a little bit trickier in terms of validation, because you have there's some spin efficiency measures out there based on Al Nathan's formulas, based on a few different things out there. And you can also eyeball some stuff. If someone tells you someone's four seamer is 80 degrees spin efficient, that's almost certainly not the case. Even just looking at averages across different release slots, different movement profiles, it kind of give you an idea of validation. Okay. I hope this might have been okay. Anyways, sorry. But yeah. So for the spin efficiency model, you can do that. You can do a mixed model, TrackMan and Rapsodo data. In that case, you're looking for a little bit of unsupervised data, because not every TrackMan row has a spin efficiency column. So you'd go there. You tackle that a little bit differently. You'd feed the model clearly labeled data and clearly unlabeled data. Do that. So there's a couple different ways to go about it. We have more Rapsodo data, and technically more TrackMan data and public TrackMan data than ever as well. So I've been playing around with a couple options, and honestly, I'm feeling pretty good about it. We also have a ton of paired, well, not a ton, less so than the other technologies, but we have paired Rapsodo and TrackMan data. So in that sense, it'll give us an idea of, what the actual mapping is. We can train on that and have a truth variable for both TrackMan and Rapsodo. Gotcha. But yeah, I posted about it a bit on Twitter, but I'm pretty excited. I think our errors are looking lower than ever. And one of the key things that I do usually, and I've talked about this, but is initially predict a gyro degree, because gyro degree is so much more clustered at the right point rather than spin efficiency, which is not the distribution of how spin efficiency actually goes. Mm-hmm. And then I map it over to spin efficiency.
Yeah.
Sure. Then that's just for spin efficiency. And then did you discuss the vertical approach angle too?
No. So, damn, dude, I was not planning on talking this much, dude. I'm kidding. thirsty out here, dude. I'm getting thirsty. I'm pounding this brandy, and your boys.
Dude, the RR rat, man. The RR rat's getting you.
Still got juice, dude.
RR rat.
Yeah. So vertical approach angle, I think, is pretty interesting. Basically measures how steep a pitch is when it enters the zone, and it's been around for a while. I noticed recently a lot of people are talking about it. Jake Stone, shout out Simple Pacific Metrics, made a video on it that seemed to get a good amount of views. People have talked about it on Twitter recently. I think it's a pretty interesting metric. It's one you can very closely predict off TrackMan data, because if you just throw in a bunch of vertical movement metrics, vertical plate locations, and some release points,
right,
it comes pretty damn close.
Yeah. To
the point where it almost like, it's almost just like essentially a combination of those variables, which is useful which is useful in of itself if you have an idea of what it measures and ways to use it.
Right.
So I have a couple ideas. I had a couple ideas that initially put me on that path after talking to Jakes, like I said, and Dan O'Coin, both past guests of the podcast. One of the things we were talking about using it for was seeing like who's optimizing their vertical approach angle. So essentially the idea is if someone has a really steep vertical approach angle or not so steep compared to like what it should be or where it is in the plate location, like should they optimize it by trying to put in a certain zone location? Should they try to optimize it by changing their arm slot? So like an easy example is if someone has a not very steep vertical approach angle, but they're aiming up in the zone, like those pitches might be getting creamed. Whereas like if someone has a steep vertical approach angle, but it's just like going middle, like those are just like, dick shots, like they should take advantage of their what their movement metrics like tell the vertical approach angle is, and then try to optimize either the arm slot, the zone intention, a combination of things like that. So what I did was I tried getting a non-movement based normalized vertical approach angle, controlling for the plate location and the release point, like kind of like where that vertical approach angle should be versus like where it is once you factor in like how fast they're throwing it, how much they're spinning it, how efficient the spin is, the spin axis, all that stuff to kind of just play around with it. Like I said, I haven't finished this project yet, and I'm pretty excited to have a couple ideas that I just told you guys, but I'm open to what you guys suggest as well. But the idea being, I think if the two vertical approach angles are wildly different, one of them is like that much, maybe that much more deceptive, that much more like misused, misoptimized, things like that.
Yeah.
For both of for spin efficiency and the vertical approach angle, there's like trajectory, like kinematic based models that you can just kind of calculate, right? So is there an advantage? Like what's the advantage of using like a machine learning approach and training a model that way, as opposed to just like tuning a more like kinematic trajectory based model using whatever like math theory? Like from what I've seen about Nathan's model, it's based on free body diagrams and figuring out the
actual physics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's just based on the limitations and quality of the technology that you have available, right?
Yeah.
Like if there was a technology that could like accurately measure the like fundamental physical like physics properties that go into creating the movement in the pitch, then you wouldn't need that, right? You wouldn't necessarily need like machine learning to be able to estimate spin efficiency, because you could just at that point you could just accurately measure it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple other potential benefits. Like you get to more accurately plot like the relationship between certain variables. Mm-hmm. Like the idea being like it's not like you're not always going to have every variable. B, sometimes you just want to know like how much variation one variable explain, like how much the model changes based on taking out one metric. Mm-hmm. The calibration of the technology and its limitations are a good point, and just stuff like seam shifted wake or things that aren't like typically explained by most people's understanding of baseball pitch movement and trajectory can become more apparent in general, like machine learning or data, big data processing.
Yeah. like forces beyond Magnus affecting
Yeah.
movement. Not understanding those. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point too.
I mean, for example, the classic one is the Nathan's had a spin efficiency model out for a while, and I think, and I guess I haven't looked at it in the last like year or so because I know he started working with like Tango and MLB data, so maybe it's gone a lot better. But I mean, I don't want to speak to its pros and cons super bluntly, but Brady, when you're playing around with it, it was predicting spin efficiencies above 100%.
Yeah, it still does that. I mean, they still get active spin above 100, which is
yeah. And I mean, like obviously Alan Nathan's a very accomplished physicist and certainly a much better physicist than any of us. So I haven't done like a deep analysis into what the limitations of it are from a physics kinematics point of view. But right. I know if I make a machine learning algorithm and train it well enough, it's not going to predict above 100.
Right.
And if it does, you're just throwing a like score there. If it's above 100, just round to 100.
Yeah. Just stop it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you could kind of combine the two? Like try to, if you had some estimate of how much variability you can explain using physics and kinematics, and then use machine learning to kind of like fill in the gaps that like are inevitably going to exist because there are things you can't measure.
Yeah. I think that happens a decent bit of the time. For example, like I've derived like essentially even a vertical approach angle. I derived spin efficiency I derived it through a machine learning algorithm and then like applied it to another like machine learning algorithm, right? So in the past, I've done that for kinematics and then like use that as a feature variable for a big ML project as well.
I feel like that's not like too far off from like calculations of kinetics with inside Visual 3D, because like we're accurately measuring the kinematics, but then we use like Deleva for MOIs and the estimates of like segment inertial properties. So I feel like that's like pretty similar to that. Although like Deleva is just like simple regressions. I don't think they use machine learning for the cadavers for the inertial properties. Those things.
Yeah, just like general means probably.
Yeah,
like maybe
specific I think it was just like a simple regression, and that's like a huge downside when trying to use that stuff for like trying to apply kinetics to like elite athletes, because it's the assumption that it's like a 50th percentile like white male, which is not what the majority of elite athletes are from like segment properties,
Yeah,
that's like a big downside.
And that's what the high performance guys have been asking us if we could measure limb length to help get improve the biomechanics model.
That'd be pretty interesting. I mean, we could just go a step further, and before the assessments, we just cut off each person's segments, like measure their moments of inertia for all of them. We could call like a inertial measurement testing or something as part of the assessment.
Yeah, validation, dude. Validation.
Yeah.
See what it actually is.
It's like delimbing people.
Think we can get that approved by an ethical review board?
Not here.
Dude, as long as there's no STDs involved, that's all they care about, dude. I remember that quiz. All they care about is you can't give people, what was it? Do you remember what STD was? You can't give people like okay, anyways.
I would feel like it's any STD. You can't give them any STD.
No.
I don't know if there's one in particular.
There's a historical example. There's a historical example of in the quiz. Don't you remember taking that? And they were like, yeah, don't do this, what people did in 1930. So just give a bunch of people like one specific disease, and then there's a test out of theory.
Yeah.
There's some psycho research stories like that.
I remember what you're talking about. Is it? I think it was syphilis. I think it was syphilis.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Might be wrong on that. Okay, on vertical approach angle though, what's your prediction for like high performing combinations? Because I feel like I have some just from like general like baseball talk and like how, or at least like general like coach talk,
Yeah. I think it's pretty based on pitch type, which I think is pretty obvious. Most people have played around with it. I mean, this is like something I've said before, but on a very base level, it almost just matters that your stuff is different than most people's stuff.
Deviating from the norm.
Yeah. When I say that, I mean that from the point of view of, doing predictive modeling on run value and plotting our own predictive like XERA metrics that compare pretty well with what's out there publicly. Yeah. So that's what I mean when I say like it's better. But yeah, one of the things that we've played around with a bunch is looking at fastball vertical approach angle, since everyone throws a fastball, and then plotting that compared to gaps in that the fastball and their their primary off speed vertical approach angles, and using that as a metric. That's worked out well for our own internal models. But yeah, I mean, at a very core level, basically, if you have a ton of vertical break, you're going to have a steep vertical approach angle.
Yeah.
And if you have a ton of vertical break, it's because you throw fast and spin the ball well, which also, makes sense as that, that leading out to high performance graded fastball.
Yeah. My first thought when you were talking about it was just like trying to, I guess like thinking of it from the fastball perspective, like trying to deviate as greatly as possible from like average attack angle of a hitter. So like if you have a low vertical approach angle, throwing from like a lower slot and then throwing up in the zone so that higher attack angle swings, you would like deviate from that greatly. But then I was thinking more of it in terms of like based on just like hitting and the amount of like that we don't know about perception and everything going on in there, probably more so just valuable to just like be different, like just not do what other people do kind of a thing. To have like an outlier pitch and an outlier zone in terms of like vertical approach angle. Because even if it I guess it did match like the hitter's attack angle, if it's something that like no one's ever seen before, it's just gonna like totally fuck them up,
Yeah, and that's one thing. That's basically what we like I kind of mentioned. One thing I want to look at it next, just get an idea of how deceptive is it based on arm slots and pretty much based on arm slots and like expected vertical movement. To an extent. And yeah, like seeing like what pitchers basically potential, like if you can optimize not just arsenals, but like command of arsenals based on the vertical approach angle,
right,
is what's interesting. And like it's an idea we've kicked around a bit. Like I said, it's just like something that we've always kind of like messed around with and incorporated vertical approach angle. Had a little bit of a bandwidth now and hopefully in the future, so kind of got going on that project. Probably gonna maybe outsource some parts of it to other analysts, but no, I'm excited. Do you want to move on to the machine learning article as well?
Oh, not yet.
Before your boy gets too fucking smacked off this.
Not yet. We got Iowa in the chat. We got a question on vertical approach angles. Sam Bornstein, how do you compare a pitcher with a high spin, steep vertical approach angle fastball and one with a low spin, steep vertical approach angle fastball? What might that say about the pitcher's grip, arm slot, etc.? So the only thing changing being high versus low spin. So I'm guessing like high release point, steep vertical approach angle fastball, and the primary thing just being like the spin efficiency of that, or well, the spin.
Could be a couple of things.
Yeah.
Could be a couple of things, and feel free to clarify in the chat if you're listening, Sam. I mean, essentially, it's going to be based off a lot of speed and spin and vertical break, but vertical break is, based a lot off speed and spin. So it's really going to be based off like speed and spin characteristics.
So if it has
and release,
if it has lower spin, it's got to have a lower vertical break, meaning that the release slot would have to be higher, right?
Yeah, or I mean, also I'm assuming maybe I guess I should assume that he's talking about active spin or true spin, because otherwise that might that would add another factor of like what ratio of that is spin efficient.
Yeah, it could be like a really low spin efficiency one or like high.
Yeah, I mean the person could be aiming higher. They could be releasing from a higher angle. they could be throwing the ball faster. So even though it has lower spin, there's still like, a decent amount of magnetic force on the ball. Could be quite a few things, but I think that question is like pretty much in line with what I'm playing around with now and hoping to answer.
Yeah.
Because the high spin, steep vertical approach angle is like, if you're getting a bunch of lift, then you're going to be basically have to be throwing it down, right? Like it has to be coming, like the trajectory has to.
Steep.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, you're going to be throwing it down anyways, but yeah, your vertical release angle is going to be. Yeah. By the way, vertical release angle is something that is in TrackMan's output usually, or like the TrackMan's classic output that like colleges and high schools get, or whoever has like a raw TrackMan file, but isn't in the StatCast DB. So that's probably the rail angle. If you've seen on a TrackMan CSV, that's probably the closest thing. That's probably the thing you'd use to overfit the most of vertical approach angle, but it's not in the public data.
Yeah, those are the two main trajectory inputs for Nathan's trajectory models. Those like horizontal and vertical angles of release. It's just like phi and theta or something.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, we can rip it. Does Sam have a no?
All right.
We can hit the study.
Into the article.
Yo, Sam, by the way, I'm sorry I couldn't get the competition going, dude. I tried, as Lindley and Brady can probably attest. Just got shot down from our CEO, just too limited of bandwidth, but definitely still think it was a really good idea, and I don't know if it'll come together in the future, but yeah, just want to admit to that on the podcast, dude.
Yeah, just tell everyone.
So this is a study out of Cleveland, Ohio, at the Cleveland Clinic. It's called the Machine Learning Outperforms Regression Analysis to Predict Next Season Major League Baseball Player Injuries. It's an epidemiology and validation of a lot of player years from performance and injury profile trends from 2000 to 2017. So basically, they got a bunch of publicly available data from Fangraphs, from Baseball Reference, and from Baseball Savant, and then also injury data from the Professional Baseball Transactions Archive.
Yeah. And
then they used logistical regression to use performance metrics and health measurements from the health database, the Professional Baseball Transactions Archive database that they included, to predict the next season's whether or not they would have an injury and where the injury would be. So there was basically like 6 outcomes, I think. I believe it was, they were trying to predict where is it? Trying to predict future knee injury, future back injury, future hand injury, future foot or ankle injury, shoulder injury, or elbow injury. And
by the way, getting ahead of it a little bit, because this is a question I had after looking through it. It was hard for me to tell. It doesn't seem they didn't have knee injury, back injury, and hand injury, or all the 6 splits as variables going in. They just had injury, right? Just had one variable rather than split out by body part.
I think it was split up by body part, because these are the descriptive measures from the database they got. So they have this many knee injuries, back injuries, hand injuries, and I think that was input to the models, if I'm not mistaken. But I also, so basically, if a player had more than one season of data with like in the data sets they pulled, then they would be included in the analysis. And there was, I don't know, they looked at in position players, they had over 9,000 player years. So basically they had 1,900 unique players with about 5 years of data for each one on average. from 2000 to 2017. And basically with all of there's a list. I don't have the list with me, but there's a bunch of pitch FX data, on-field performance data, and statistics for position players and pitchers. And I think earlier I mentioned that there might be a little bit of like not enough context from the people running these analyses or something, because there were some like pitching metrics that were included in the hitting analysis and vice versa as well. But basically, so they have a bunch of different types of machine learning models. I think there was 5 of them.
Wait. Hold on this page real quick. I was trying to read this. 2 for each of these clinical. Oh, okay. So the reason I was asking about the injury thing, because on the feature impact, it seemed like it lumped injury as one variable, and here I was looking one of the 7 for each clinical outcome. So it sounds like they built 6. No, for each clinical. Yeah, it sounds like they built like 6 different models for each of the.
So there's six models, different type of machine learning algorithms. So there's
but it says for each clinical outcome. It says for each clinical outcome though. Doesn't that imply that for each possible injury has its own like 6 sets of or 6 separate models?
Yeah, so there's 7 clinical outcomes, because there's all of the specific injuries and then the next season just general injury, and 6 different model types, and then they did it like for position players and pitchers separately. So I think there's a total of 84, or it came out to like 84 models or whatever. So they tested logistical regression, which like Caravan, you're probably gonna have to talk to me about that, because I actually they don't go into like super in depth about how they did that. But then they do a random forest, K nearest neighbors, naive bays, XG boost, and a top 3 ensemble, which the top 3 ensemble is just like compiles the top 3 performing machine learning algorithms, and then compares their performance as measured by their ability to predict injury and whether the player would have an injury next year and where the injury would be if so. And there's some specifics about how they trained it. They did I think they did 10 different training sets, where they left 10% of the data set for testing. And then they did that for all 10, like the whole data set basically. So they repeated that 10 times. So they tested on, or they trained and they tested on the entire data set. I don't know if that's kind of above my pay grade. And then the results. So for the position players, the injuries were the models predicted the injuries best or better than pitchers. Sorry, and the highest performing ones were the random forest and the XG boost individually, but then the top 3 ensemble outperformed all of the individual models and also logistic regression for position players, and then for pitchers. It was similar. The top 3 ensemble was the highest performing one, and then random forest and XG boost were the highest machine learning models. But in both cases, the logistic regression was very, very closely performing to the best machine learning models, and also wasn't far off from the top 3 ensemble, which was something that was really interesting to me. And then on specific injury sites, the performance was much lower, or not much lower, I guess, but significantly lower, like statistically. And basically their discussion was that they with some mild confidence they're able to predict injury, like binary in a binary fashion, but they weren't very confident in the injury site performance.
Did they go into any kind of? Did they talk about any naive model just modeled off prior injury? Because that, I mean, obviously this would do quite a bit better when they feed like 80 different variables in there. But I was kind of curious because a lot of times for machine learning models or just any type of model. Machine learning is kind of a broad term, but essentially can be kind of synonymous with predictive modeling in this case. I'm always curious how it compares to just the easy naive model where it just plots on especially when it's like a variable like this that has like so much more relative feature importance than every other thing in there. Like how it compared with just using injury.
Yeah, definitely. And that's similar to what you were saying about like mass with our like velo predicting models, right? Like body weight. So like if these features or these like features or predictors aren't that important if they can't outperform like body mass or whatever. But there's some weird things like in the position player data, one of the most important measures was weighted cutter runs per 100 pitches, which like I assume that's just not like correct because they're position players, right? That's a pitching measure.
That's for position players?
Yeah, this is for position players. So the top three, so like injury.
Do you mean how they performed against cutters?
Maybe.
Yeah.
maybe when they got brought into pitch.
Yeah.
Maybe this is just saying that like bringing a position player into pitch is a recipe.
He's fucked up, dude. He's injured as hell.
Yeah. And then so between both models, there was previous injury, age, and then wins above replacement, as well as the weighted cutter runs, which is weird that's important in both position players and pitchers. But it's like, I think in summary, this isn't super useful, obviously, because like the best predictors were performance, which were like wins above replacement. So better players are more likely, I assume they don't go into the direction, or I didn't see the direction, whether it was more WAR or less WAR that was that like went into predicting future injury. But I assume it's more, which makes sense because like higher performing people are going to be playing more. There's higher like risk for injury if you're playing more, I'd assume. And then previous injury, obviously, seems pretty straightforward as well. And then age was another big one. So like these results weren't super profound, and I don't think that they would be like really change any practitioners like decision making or whatever. But it's a really interesting approach to this problem, and I think with potential additions to the training data set, whether it's they included some pitch FX data, but there are things like StatCast stuff, like release point, I don't know, extension or whatever. They
included a lot of stuff, dude. They included. I was looking at the processing GitHub link you dropped. I mean, that's one of my main things. It's like they just threw everything in a blender, and it's gonna, even if you, however much you like optimize the like however much you hold out its test set or cross validation test set or whatever, the model's still gonna have like usually some sort of like overfit. And when you throw so many variables in, it's gonna be. I mean, what I'm assuming happened is just like a few people. Maybe not. Maybe there's something to be said for the weighted cutter runs. I don't know, but like that'd be, if there is something you said, that'd be the most valuable takeaway from this, right? Because prior injury, predicting future injury is, I think, something that most people are aware of and know. So if this model brings any value, it would be, I assume, in the fact that weighted cutter runs per 100 pitches is actually a good indicator of injury, which I'd be curious to look at, like just seeing like that in and of itself, seeing how that does, and seeing what kind of outliers carry that. I would say really quickly. Actually, I'm maybe doing something kind of similar. Finally, like a larger big data.
I'm gonna stop sharing, Anthony.
All right.
A larger big data prediction thing on Terry's green elbow designations, because in gym, I think we talked about it. We have low elbow on, low shoulder on, low other on, and then like shut down for each of those three. So I think our data set could be just as rich and probably and much more standardized, because rather than we have like, every team doctor, every kind of manager decides this guy's going on a DL, this guy's going 10-day DL, this guy's doing this. We have just Terry. It's just Terry. applying the same criteria to all those metrics. So I'm optimistic that we have a even cleaner data set in a lot of regards to run that in gym.
Yeah, that's another thing, another like limitation I think to this study that I don't think they did justice in discussing in the paper is that like the data set, yeah, it's publicly available injury data that is paired with whatever performance, but there is severe limitations with those self-reported measures or the team-reported measures. You know, like there are other motivations for people and or for the data that gets reported in those things, I think. So that should probably be considered. And I don't know. I like this approach, though. I feel like this. I don't know. With like
just throwing a blender, just see what it spits out.
Yeah, for sure.
I like the approach too. It still hasn't changed my level of skepticism for injury prediction, especially in pitching. But
yeah,
as I said,
for Green Elbows Part 2, baby.
As I said this morning, though, when you dropped the article, I hadn't even like considered like injury prediction stuff for position players, and I feel like that would just be a lot easier. Or I'll say I would be less skeptical on injury prediction with position players just because of like playing time, regularity, more like workload data that you could collect. Just thinking about stuff like I mean, because they already do that like in other sports with like hockey and basketball where they like move across a field or like a court or a rink, right? Tracking, you know, how many steps or distance traveled, and that being like a super strong indicator of like workload and injury prediction, like leading them to fatigue and injury. So that seems like way more plausible for injury prediction, just measuring stuff like that, like heart rate and distance traveled. For like a position player compared to, you know, looking at 100 pitches every 5 days or whatever it is, you know, for a pitcher. Like that doesn't seem like nearly enough to know what's going on, but I'd be more confident in that. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah. One thing that I think we're going to do better on when we work on this as well is, okay, never mind. I was looking at the GitHub code again to see what they brought in. They did bring in velocities on, actually, no, I don't know if they brought in velocities. I think
I was looking for velocity in the list. I couldn't find it.
If you look at the GitHub code between lines like 536 and 558, it's weird because that's just like Fangraphs notation. So I'm not totally sure if that's V for velocity or V for value, but it makes me think that it's V for velocity because I think the W under it is like weighted values. But you like. That's the thing. Like, here's a quick theory. I mean, it might just be the velocity on a cutter just falls when you're injured because you're trying to throw basically not a full intent fastball and you just can't yank it. And then if your velocity on a cutter falls, that's just like probably a bad pitch and it just gets creamed, right? And then the model, but since you brought in weighted runs per cutter, maybe the model just identifies that as the variable that's causing it when in reality it might just be like the cutter velocity dropping.
Wait, is that only a pitcher value or is that also a batter value? I for some reason I thought like that.
I think we're not sure. I think we're not sure.
For some reason I thought like weighted that like cutter weighted thing is like it can be a batter value as well, like to an attempt to quantify like their performance normalized off of cutters or something, like how well they do with
I think it's what it is, but it seems weird that's so high up for
yeah.
Oh, nice. Oshar posted a hitting sprint structure revamp. Yeah. But he must have been listening to podcasts who didn't heard us drop the word revamp.
Yeah. But basically, if you do well against cutters, you're gonna get. If you hit cutters well, you're gonna get hurt. Is what this is saying.
I mean, here's the thing. I think when we work on this in gym, and I'm hoping that we do it this month. To be honest, I'm gonna bring it up in our sprint meeting in like about an hour. But I mean, I'll tell you right now what my predictions are. I think velo dropping on fastballs is going to be a huge indicator, and I think this is like pretty, a pretty non-controversial claim. And I think on the batting side, not everyone has like bat speed values since it's not like in publicly available data, but we do because we use like bat sensors.
Right.
I mean, I bet bat speed's going to be a pretty good giveaway if someone's hurt.
Yep. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I'd be interested to see. I guess most of the like injury prediction or injury correlations with biomechanics data have been like kind of related to performance. So things that are related to better fastballs.
Bro, how many hickeys do you have on your neck, dude?
What? Stop. What?
That's what Jack on the Rocks does.
Oh, did you have eczema again, dude? Or
yeah.
Three fucking hickeys on your neck, dog.
That's actually the highest predictor for injury right there.
Yeah.
There's so many missing variables from this. I'm telling you, the easiest one, they should have just put is Driveline athlete or not, and then
weighted balls or no.
They needed to pull publicly available data for like have they come to Driveline. That's the real predictors they need in there.
That's right. Really quick though, Caravan, what do you think can you describe the logistic regression they probably did? They just didn't go into the description at all.
Yeah. I'll give you a really quick logistic regression breakdown because I know what you mean. It is kind of confusing for people initially. Essentially, logistic regression just predicts if a variable is like 1 or 0. It's usually used for binary variables, and you know how linear regression looks when it's just like slope or intercept plus b1 times x1 plus b2 times x2 ... right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing, except it's modeled as a logit function, which means on the numerator it's like e, like the mathematic number e, like 2.2 whatever, e to the power of that equation over 1 plus e to the power of that equation, and that's the probability. Like that'll spit out 0.63, and since it's got to be 0 or 1, since 0.63 is going to get pushed to 1.
Okay, so that's just like finding a bunch of coefficients and then putting it into a static predictive model.
Exactly. Just think as a multilinear regression, except the actual multilinear equation is e to the power of that, the multilinear regression, and it's e to the power of that over 1 plus e to the power of that, and that probability just gets shifted to 1 or 0.
Gotcha. Are you surprised that performed pretty like closely to the better machine learning algorithms?
I mean, dude, I don't know. I feel like this when you have like 600 variables and you're using all of them, I just feel like it's gotta overfill like a motherfucker. And I think like in variables and like there's like different types of machine learning algorithms. Like very broadly, there's like neural nets, there's tree-based algorithms. There's a couple other categories, but like I think for those, I think when you use like tree-based, specifically tree-based, you can kind of tell right away. You can get a better idea for relative importance. But and this is me kind of saying this from my own not super precise like statement of this, but I always kind of get a feel like if you do a huge multivariate linear regression or logistic regression, I just feel it's really easy to overfit because you're just like baking everything in, and it's impossible. Like if you ever look at a huge multilinear regression and look at the R squared will always stay the same or go up as you add in other variables. That's why a lot of people use like this thing called adjusted R squared that like normalizes for the number of variable used. Because if you just keep feeding it more data, it's just gonna fit closer and closer. And again, this is like a statement that I don't know if it's like commonly accepted or not, but I get the feeling that logistic regression sometimes plays the same way. It seems like it's more prone to overfitting versus like some neural net or tree based like gradient boosted algorithm.
Yeah, because standard practice is that you test the model and then the less important variables you just toss until you get like some amount of importance for each of the variables included.
Yeah. Well, you want to avoid like like one variable basically explaining the other, or like including variables that aren't actually like predictive, but in that case all it does is like overfit, right? Like it's predictive only in that case, but in a validation set it isn't. And obviously I'm sure they did some cross validation and stuff, but I guess like variable inclusion, I was trying to look through it, but it really seemed like variable inclusion was kind of either not well explained or not really a thing, because I think I dropped that comment to you before the podcast too. I didn't see much on that.
Yeah. And then also just generally, Nikolai brought this up on Twitter. like projecting or predicting recovery time versus just like a binary, like injured or no, is like a big limitation or not. I guess not a limitation, but that would be like a future like use of this if we ever got to a point where we could predict that. That'd be sweet.
Different applications for sure. Yeah.
Hell yeah. We got Bodie on next week.
I
mean, yeah.
I mean, if he can nail down the Bang sponsorship, is that the deal?
Listen, Bodie, all I need you is to get me some
Cherry Bang.
It's actually pretty clutch because I mean, so technically, next episode will be the episode that we take over the primary podcast of Driveline Baseball. There were only 41 episodes of the Driveline Baseball podcast. Next episode will be 42. So we can just like we can kind of roast Bodie on that from the start, like, this is uncharted territory for you. Episode 42. You've never been here with the Driveline Baseball podcast. This is new territory. So,
dude, I'm down to make like a tweet thread, like top 5 moments in the first 42 episodes or something. I know I talked to you guys about this.
Yeah.
And you know what my first one is gonna be?
Stop, dude.
All right.
We should got on my
Hey, let's go back to screen share. Okay. Let's go. Bodie next week then.
Hell yeah.
Good to wrap.
And David Howell after maybe, and Tiger's gonna be in there too. I promise you.
Dang,
I'll keep name dropping him though.
Oh, we got a fire list coming up.
Got a lot. All right. Peace out, everyone.
Peace.